Good afternoon. This is the Franchise Tag Podcast. We are a little bit energyless, tired.
What are you talking about? Come on.
Hey, I've been to the gym this morning. I got bags of energy.
There you go.
Well, hopefully some of the energy while we do this podcast from George and Adam can sort of satire onto me, because it has been a long night, Franchise Tag Podcast fans. The NFL Draft 2022 happened last night, started at 1 a.m. We all didn't get to bed till 5 a.m. if you watched till the end, but maybe if you're one of the lucky ones who had a top 10 pick, maybe you thought you could go to bed early, but then you woke up this morning and realised you should have never gone to bed early. This is a bit like the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl. People who finished it at half-time or who decide to stop watching the fourth quarter and go to bed. Never do that, because this can go so many ways. And this NFL Draft, though we said that depth and more depth was going to be the key word for this draft, actually, I have a new word for this NFL Draft 2022, and it's movement. We saw so many trades. I mean, at one point, I think from 10 to like 20, only 6 teams had their own pick. There was so much movement during the draft, so many trades, so many wild things happening. Some players dropping, some players going up the board. And some teams didn't pick altogether, George. You got till about 3 a.m. I mean, it must have been a long night. And with all this movement, you must have had your fingers crossed at one point that the Colts could move up into that first round.
Yeah, I did, because, Jim Irsay, he likes to, the cryptic tweeter. He was tweeting about, we have the 42nd pick, or will we, with the, the eyes emoji. So naturally, okay, I thought maybe we're going to, make a move or something, but no. So, but saying that, it was fun to watch what was going on. I mean, I lasted till about 3:30 in the morning and I crashed out. But like you said, I think I've just had a look. There were 8 trades, and that includes existing deals and also trades on the night between the 10th and the 20th pick. So it was quite a lot of movement. But obviously there are still a lot of needs for a lot of teams. We'll talk about some of them today, one being the Packers, who didn't draft any receivers. I see you there, Adam. But I mean, it was a great draft. It was good.
I suppose we should talk about that, Adam. We're going to probably bring the Packers up at some point. Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt. You just took the Georgia Bulldogs defense, 2 very key pieces. Obviously, Georgia winning the national championship in the college championship this year. Their defense being the biggest key. I mean, they had 5 to 8 players drafted last night, and they were all defensive players. That's fantastic. I mean, what a team. I mean, we could talk about probably that first and then talk about your Packers taking Quay and Devontae.
Yeah, I think there's always one college team, isn't there? Like every year that brings out a lot of players in the first round. And this year, Georgia definitely got a lot of them. And that defense just goes to show how great it was during the college season last year. I think when it comes to us, I'm not shocked. I know I kind of joked about it in the mock draft, but we probably won't take any wide receivers in the first round, and that's kind of how the board felt. They obviously felt like they didn't want to spend any draft capital moving up, or that it wouldn't be worth it anyway. I know something that has come out. Rogers was on Pat McAfee last night as during the draft. Something came out that he basically said that they had 6 wide receivers with a first round grade. So, once you got past them, and we got past them pretty quickly, unless we were going to draft up and spend a lot, it was never going to happen. So I think because of that, it's understandable. I get why everyone has a go at the Packers, and it's like 20 years or whatever since they've drafted a wide receiver in the first round. But I think when you look at their record in the second and the third round of bringing in wide receivers, it does work. And whether or not this is the right move or the wrong move, they obviously felt like they didn't want to spend a lot of money to move up. So I kind of get what they're doing. They're not bad players. When you look at it, I think the initial reaction of Quay Walker, you suddenly think to yourself, well, that's a bit of a one from left field kind of thing, a bit of an odd choice when you think you've got Devin Lloyd on there. You've got Nakobe Dean still available now. And all we're doing is constantly talking about them. But at the same time, Quay Walker, like we said, part of this Georgia defense, can't have been that bad. So, it's one of them things. Devontae White, I think we were all saying him and Jordan Davis, that they're the two best defensive linemen. They do need help on the defensive line. This is going to make the defense a lot stronger. And, you're starting to see, and with a lot of teams, that actually it's the defense that makes the difference. And they've always said defense wins championships. And maybe that's the thing that they need to look at. I get why everyone's going a little bit mental about it, but at least I can kind of see some sort of logic there. But they do have to go for receiving options today. They've got 3 picks. They've got a couple of fourths and lower down. They can use them to trade up, which I think is something they might look to do. And that's probably one way of getting themselves, I don't know, like an Alec Pierce or a David Bell or a George Pickens or just something like that. Lots of people are talking about getting Pickens in the first round. Well, if we can get him in the second and trade up, then it makes sense why they've done what they've done. So, I think that's probably the way they're going to go.
We might as well stick on the Georgia Bulldogs defense, though, and talk about the number 1 pick, and that was Trayvon Walker going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Only in the last couple of weeks, really, has he been starting to be mocked as the number 1 player, George. And Jacksonville Jaguars went and took him. A lot of discussion beforehand, but they really liked him. He looks like a really explosive player off the line there. Definitely a position of need for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do you think Jags fans are going to be pretty ecstatic with that? Seems as last year they took Trevor Lawrence and then took Travis Etienne lower down the board. Yeah. Lawrence obviously was the obvious pick at the time, but then the Travis Etienne pick was one that they felt like it was going to be a big cheer from Jacksonville with their pick. Travis Etienne's name came out and they went, "What? Huh? What that pick?" And whereas this time Trayvon Walker, and obviously we'll talk about them trading back up and drafting as well.
Yeah, I think I don't think Jags fans can be mad at that really. So obviously you got T. Lawrence, who we know we know what he can do. He didn't have the greatest of seasons, but Travis, I think I've said it before. He has forgotten quite a lot because he didn't actually play, unfortunately for him. But he is a special talent, and he is great. And then obviously you look at the number 1 pick, and this was debated with every single podcast worldwide, and as well as us and everybody in their private chats, whether it's going to be Hutchinson or Kayvon. So obviously the fact that neither were the first pick, we said it ourselves. A lot of mock drafts, straight out the window, because it kind of set the tone for the rest of the day. But we said it ourselves. Walker is very, very good, freakishly good, as are many of the athletes on here. But when I anyway look at Walker and Hutchinson and Kevin, I think I probably would do the same if I was in the Jag shoes. And I know there was a lot of hype, and it's only recently, like you mentioned, that Walker's name began to rise to the top, as it does the same way that names can drop, sort of like Pickens, because of some off-field issues, but. I don't think they've done a bad job at all. And you touched on it earlier. They obviously drafted back up. I think they traded with the Bucks. And they then had this 27th pick and drafted Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah. So I don't think they've done a bad job at all. Offensively, I mean, if you look at them holistically, offensively, we mentioned some of the guys, Etienne, and we obviously lost DJ Chark. I believe he's gone to the Lions now. They still have Laviska Shenault Jr., who there was talk about trading him, and perhaps what we saw yesterday might indicate that some guys are still ready to be moved on. But I don't think the Jags fans can be mad. I think they did well. I think they did really well, and I really like Trayvon Walker. He's a great athlete. I mean, at that size, moving the way he does and chasing guys down, it's very freakishly athletic. So he'll do him some good, without a doubt.
George touched on it, Adam, about Devin Lloyd getting picked as well. They traded up with the Bucks to the 27th pick. I love these picks for the Jags. I think even if you could argue that Hutchinson or Thibodeau are the better edge rushers, not Quay Walker. Trayvon Walker is very good, and Devin Lloyd is a lot of people's linebacker number 1. They need to replace Joe Schobert, who went last year really to the Steelers, and Miles Jack, who left this year and also joined the Steelers. They're a bit thin at linebacker, and them two players are just somehow. There's an argument that they've taken the number 1 edge rusher and the number 1 linebacker in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they've done well, haven't they, with their 2 picks? I think I wouldn't say they've been the best team. I don't think they've probably got the biggest haul, but I think they've done well. They've been relatively smart with it. I think when it comes to Walker, I think they had to pick him based on the fact of that Trent Baalke, the general manager, wanted him. The owner wanted Aiden Hutchinson, and the Doug Peterson wanted offensive tackle to protect Trevor Lawrence. I feel like you kind of got that vibe when you looked at the war room. It was quite a quiet war room at the very beginning. But yeah, I think you have to go with the general manager, because otherwise, what is the point of him being there? I mean, that this is kind of the one thing, not the one thing, but the main thing that he does. So you have to do that. Walker's shown that he can be explosive. He's a great tackler, and he's gonna really help the Jags. When you look at him and Hutchinson, I suppose Hutchinson has shown more during his time, but the argument has always been that Walker has got more potential. So, I suppose it depends how you wanna look at it. But I think Walker is a fine first-round pick. I just think because of everything else that went on, he's kind of been sort of pushed aside. He's not the main news. He's just sort of like he's the number 1 pick, but everyone's kind of forgotten a little bit. And when it comes to Devin Lloyd, I think we all thought he was going to be the number 1 linebacker. And he's shown his college career that he's going to be a decent linebacker. And so I think they've done well. It was worth trading back in to be able to pick someone like him up. But you could argue that they didn't have to. They wouldn't have got him, but they could have got Nakobe Dean. So it depends. The thing with the whole draft thing, it's all dependent on what teams like, isn't it, at that point? Yes. And it's kind of like, as we said earlier, the mock drafts that we do, it is kind of a bit of a guessing game, and you just kind of have to take it as that. And but I think the Jags should be pretty happy.
Go on, Fred. I mean, I just can't stop thinking about the Jets, and it's really annoying.
I think you're right. I agree. I know where you're going with it. They credit to them, man. I mean, they're not a great team. Obviously, we know that. And Zach Wilson, he has got some tools, and they're going to stick with the guy. We know that for a fact, and we saw some flashes of it last season. Wasn't the best season for him. But they've drafted really well, and Sauce Gardner at number 4. I'm not sure how many people were expecting that, but the guy hasn't given up. I mean, I don't even know. He couldn't even remember himself the last time he gave up a touchdown. He's one of the most freakish athletes I've ever seen. His wingspan's ridiculous. He's rangy. He can run. He can tackle. Sometimes you get some of these guys, and they're a bit too lanky for their own good, but Sauce, he knows how to control his body. He's got great movement. So they draft him at number 4. Got a solid cornerback there. Number 10, I believe they traded up with the Seahawks. Is that right? Garrett Wilson. So, he went after Drake London, and a lot of people were expecting Drake London to be underneath Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, the 2 guys from Ohio State. But with number 10, they draft him, and obviously we know what he can do. Another great talent. And if you start, I can see it in my mind. Zach Wilson's great at play action. He's got a cannon for an arm. You've got someone like Garrett Wilson stretching down the field. I mean, it's looking good for them. And then you move down, and they have another pick, 26th pick, and they draft Jermaine Johnson II for the state defensive end. So, and that was a trade up from Tennessee. I don't know whether the whole Debo thing is still on. I kind of doubt it, to be honest now. No. But the Jets they've done well for themselves. It's nice because the Giants and the Jets have done some good stuff here. You don't really say that a lot, but they've done some good work. Oh, it must have been wild in New York last night. Yeah. It must have been wild. I mean, you got what? Like I said, it's been a very long night. We may miss out some things. Giants... some things. We may not say some things right. So please do bear with us. We just as all of you. Adam only got up at 10-1, and then he was on the podcast straight away. So it was great. But New York last night obtained Sauce Gardner, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, like you said, and they must have been going wild in New York because they are players that are going to New York, which is an intimidating city. It's big media, it's big expectation from the Jets fans and the Giants fans. It's a lot of distraction. You know, it's not out in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot going on in New York. And I think Jets and Giants fans must be really walking away from this, Adam, last night thinking, wow. I mean, Giants especially. Giants have got two what were considered number one picks this year already.
They're game changers.
I mean, unfortunately, Andrew Manning, our resident Giants fan, isn't with us at the minute. He's had to go to work and work from home, so he's not going to be able to join us, so we can't get his reaction on this. However, I feel like we all were saying the same thing over our WhatsApp last night about this, Adam.
Well, I think it's a good thing that he's not here because he would have been insufferable. I mean, it would have been horrific to have to listen to. Yeah, I mean, they've hit two very, very good players there who, over the course of the last 3 months, have been, were rumoured to be the number one pick. Both of them were, and they could have both easily gone first. So easily. So. The Giants have done really well, and maybe this is something that they can, Giants fans can kind of hang their hat on a little bit here, that they've actually got a GM and a head coach who may actually know what they're doing.
It feels like Andrew said that to me over personal text last night. He said it feels we've got Sherman in, we've got Daboll. This feels like something's happening here.
Well, they've looked at what the weakness is, and they've gone, right, it's the O-line. We need to sort out this O-line. And they've brought in a lot of O-linemen over the course of free agency. They've then gone and looked at an edge rusher and an O-lineman, again, what they need in order to be able to sort this problem out. Okay, Jones hasn't been given his 5th year. But then I think this is kind of like let's get all these guys together, see how they do, see how Jones does. I don't think he's long term.
No,
I don't think he's long term for him. I think he's probably the year, and then they'll look to get someone else. But I think
this is the prove it year, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it kind of is. And the thing is that even if he does prove it, they might be able to trade him. This is the thing. There's lots of different options here. It's not necessarily prove it and then we'll give you a contract. It's like, it depends what comes up. It depends how they do this year. I mean, if they end up in a position where they can get themselves back into like the top 10 next year, they might be able to get themselves a really decent quarterback, because there's some good quarterbacks coming out next year. This is the thing.
I've just looked now because I completely
round 2.
They've got the 36. They've got the 36.
I was just going to say, so before them, they've got the Bucks, the Vikings, and the Titans, who don't need a quarterback, right? I mean, maybe the Bucks, who knows? Maybe they draft a quarterback. I doubt it. Brady's only there for the year, I believe, so we'll see. But it's very likely that they will have choice of any of the guys that haven't gone, any of the guys not named Pickett. So what happens then? I mean, it could be Willis, it could be Corral, it could be any of them, really. But like you say, I don't think he's long term. Daniel Jones whatsoever. I mean, if that was the case, he would have taken the 5th year option, right? I think it's a clear indication we're sort of building for the future. Saquon Barkley, if he stays healthy, he is smiling from ear to ear right now because Neil is going to do wonders for him. But the Giants are in a good place, dare I say. I mean, if they can, they've got their, I like to call wasted receivers, but they aren't all bad. If you can give someone, whoever it is at the helm, whether it be Jones or ideally not Jones, but I mean, you still got guys like Tony, who I completely love. Kadarius Toney, whether he stays or not is another question. I mean, they've got guys who could potentially be good weapons, and if you build the O-line, you've got the edge rusher, and you potentially go for a quarterback, 4th pick in the 2nd round, they look good. I mean, I'm sure the Giants fans are, obviously Andrew's not here, but I'm sure Giants fans are happy. I know Dre from Virgil Alternative Sports, huge Giants fan. He's happy. So all that's left to say is I wonder what the Colts are going to do. And I'm slightly concerned.
Speaking of quarterback, we might as well talk about my team, who took the
Hey.
quarterback in the first round. I mean, Adam, you can play host here if you like with me.
I mean, what happened? The dream was there. The dream was there, and it faded from you. There was just that little video clip, and the dream was there, and it just and then right at the end, it was like, oh, it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Yeah. You basically, you've convinced yourself that it's not all that. But I mean, to be fair, I know I was going to say, before you jump in, Freddie, because they are your team, I mean, you're probably going to have last say here, but it's interesting because obviously, like, people are talking about the hand size, which I don't really find an issue. Baby hands and everything like that. He's the first kid. And I had a feeling, I hadn't said it in the group, but I had a feeling that he was always going to go as the first quarterback. I don't know why. There is so much talk out in the media and all the NFL analysts about Pickett being the most ready quarterback. I guess you go off what you saw at college ball. It's not always the same. It doesn't always translate into the NFL. We know that. So, like the back of our hands. But I was a little bit surprised. A little bit. Obviously, I know you've got Trubisky, but I guess now it's pretty much it's open competition. And there was a lot of talk of Pickett blowing away Trubisky. So, what are your thoughts? Where are your thoughts? How do you feel?
Well, obviously, I sent my reaction video to you guys because I did one last year and I was cheering and running around the place, obviously at 3 or 4 in the morning, and my girlfriend's in the room next door, asleep, work the next day. So, though it is quite funny, but I have to be quiet whilst reacting. I don't know whether the reaction video is out there on social media. I don't know, Adam. It is. So people can go and watch that on now. It's only a 10-second video, but it is funny because I just fell in love with Willis. I don't know what it's just the last few weeks. I've just been like, if Willis, I didn't think Willis could fall. I thought he would go in that top 10 bracket. I didn't know what. I just thought the Panthers or Seahawks would be looking to take him. And then as I got close to them and looking at more mocks and doing my own mock, I really convinced myself that actually the Seahawks and the Panthers weren't going to go quarterback. And then I was just like, well, it's just a massive grey area from Jets at 10 to us. Anyone could move in there. And the more the picks went last night, and the more you can get a vibe for it, can't you, of where it was sort of going. And the quarterback, there was like no mention really of quarterbacks in that middle section of like, no one's, could people trade up? I mean, the Saints trade up and everyone goes quarterback, but you looked at the teams they jumped above, that didn't make sense. Immediately, it was, they must be getting a quarterback. No, it didn't make sense at all why they would jump up and give up that draft picks for that. And then when it got to it, then the Saints had the pick before us.
Yes.
And I was convinced, I was like, this is dream ended, like pick in front of us.
Number 11.
Take Malik Willis out of my hands. And then they didn't. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to get Malik Willis. This is everything I've wanted. I'm so pumped for this. And then when you know Pickett's name, I'd fallen victim to the draft hype and to the player hype of Malik Willis. That is not to say I'm upset with Kenny Pickett, because I'm not. I think it's a really smart move. I love the story for it. He's a guy out of Pittsburgh College, played at Heinz Field for all out his college career. He knows the field. Obviously, it's very different in an NFL scenario to a college scenario. But he has good ties in that building. The coaches probably know more about him than they did about any of the quarterbacks, even though they went and visited pro days and stuff like that with these quarterbacks. They know Kenny Pickett inside out. They have had scouts probably at Pittsburgh every game for the whole season, and not just one, probably multiple, looking at all different aspects of his game. I don't think this is a bad pick, though it feels like it's a bad pick because I wanted Malik Willis and we got Kenny Pickett. Mm-hmm. I probably just don't know enough about Kenny Pickett to be over not as taking Malik Willis. I need to know more about Kenny Pickett to be in there. As for competing with Trubisky, I saw a tweet earlier, follow the money. And if you look at Trubisky's money, he's on backup money. He's not on big price.
What is it? Is it 20? What's the deal? 20 mil? Or is it fully?
2 year 20, I think. It's not
fully guaranteed.
I'm not sure. I don't know the details of the contract. Okay. I think I don't particularly like the idea of Trubisky starting and then Pickett coming in. I think we just pick one and go with one. That's what I would do. if you pick Pickett, we're going with Pickett. If we're picking Trubisky, we're going with Trubisky. Like, I don't want this transitional thing. I don't want what the Dolphins did with starting Fitzpatrick and then moving on to Tua within the 6th game. I don't think that's sensible. I don't think the Steelers do that sort of thing, though. They're not an organization that's known for that instability of that. What I love about this more than ever is the biggest thing that I've been saying really since the Super Bowl, really, into this point, is the Steelers have not looked like they have a direction with the quarterback position for 4 years now. Mm-hmm. And it's really, that's what's annoyed me more than anything about the Pittsburgh Steelers. We had Jalen Hurts in our palm, and we took Chase Claypool. Not a bad pick in hindsight. Chase Claypool's still a very good wide receiver, but Jalen Hurts could have been the heir apparent. I would have liked him to have sat and then had him. I think he's a decent quarterback, and he would have fit the system, but we're working at the minute. But we've watched this game, which I know people joked about. I would love to have traded for Russell Wilson, but Trubisky can play. He's proven that he can play, and he is a decent quarterback. He's a passable quarterback. And now we're bringing in Kenny Pickett, and I mean, it's just too early. This could be genius. This could be just a serviceable quarterback. I don't know. It depends what our game plan is. It depends what we want to do going forward. I said if it weren't a quarterback, I'd have been happy with any corner or lineman off the board. Luckily, I think we're going to get a good corner in the second, because I feel like a lot of the corners have dropped into the second, so that should be good today. A bit of a shock, but I don't feel like Steeler Nation is upset. It's not this. It's not a. Last year it was jubilation for getting Najee, but also a little bit of a murmur of why did we go for no lineman. And then this year we've gone for the quarterback. Okay, maybe not the right choice, but a lot of people are very happy about Pickett. People are not upset about getting Willis, and maybe would have liked Willis, but they're still happy that we got Pickett. Fundamentally, I'm trusting in Pittsburgh to know that this is the right pick. We do pretty decent in the draft, I think, year on year anyway. So it's just seeing what we do moving forward now.
I think, I'm sorry, Adam, but for me, there's a few things, and you touched on a couple of them. So the first thing is the reason why I think they probably did go with Pickett in the end, because, as I mentioned it earlier, the whole readiness thing. You guys have a solid team right now. I mean, on offense, you have the weapons to go. Like, Deontay Johnson, I love the guy. I know he's had issues with drops, but he has upped his game massively. Obviously, you've got Najee Harris, who is a great running back, and we saw what he could do last year. And you mentioned, I forget his name, the guy from Claypool, who, I mean, I should have known. I'm wearing the damn team right here. Claypool, who is another great pick, but the fact that you've, I don't know if it's the whole trap of analysts saying X and Y, but if Kenny Pickett is as ready as they say he is, then he can slot right in, like you say. Don't do the whole transition. Don't start with Trubisky unless he really does beat him out. You start with Pickett, you put him in there, you build up the relationship with the wide receivers and running back, and you hit the ground running. So I can kind of see why they've done that. But also as well, you mentioned that he's played there before. I mean, if you look, there's a few guys in the draft actually who have that relationship. So Hutchinson, Detroit, he's very familiar. Icky, who couldn't say enough about Carolina, he's from the area, he loves the team. And then for you, obviously, there's Pickett as well. So I do see why some teams do that, because obviously if they like the guy, and the guy happens to be, familiar with the town and the area, then it kind of makes sense, They haven't got to travel too far, etc., etc. So it suits them well. But another thing you said, it's a kind of, before Adam jumps in, it's a kind of segue onto the Eagles. As you mentioned, Hurts. Would you rather have had Hurts over Claypool? Would you rather? You said you'd like to have Claypool Hurts sit and then possibly take over at some point. But from what we've seen from the Eagles, and what we've seen, we'll come to the Eagles shortly, and what we've seen they've done in the draft and the crazy trade they made last night. Do you feel that you'd still want Hurts? Do you think he'd be the guy for you? Because I don't. I'm not.
My thing is, if we got Hurts, we have always been good at getting wide receivers, and we're a desirable place. So whether we went the free agency route, or we have got a wide receiver later on in the draft or anything like that, or in last year's draft, that could have been a possibility. My thing with taking Hurts was I wanted a plan after Ben, and there was no succession plan. And I would still take Hurts over Claypool now, to be honest with you, because I think Hurts, in the system he's worked in Philadelphia, is very similar in Pittsburgh, run heavy. I like Jalen Hurts' arm. I think he is underrated in Philadelphia, personally. I don't think he's bad at all.
I'm not sold.
I don't think he's had any talent. He has no line where on paper is amazing, but it's never healthy. He's got a running back who's been very. Miles Sanders has been fantastic with him, but Miles Sanders has missed a few games, a fair few games. Dallas Goedert's obviously amazing at tight end. I would probably if I had to
Hurts or Pickett,
just because I know the Steelers probably would have done more to keep Smith-Schuster. Maybe we may have looked, and we could have got wide receivers in the next 2 drafts further down the board, because that's what we're good at.
Adam?
Yeah, just quickly, when it comes to Pickett, I just find it as I get it, but we were having a conversation last night before the draft started, and I was having a bit of a go. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, and he was going on about how Pickett was his number 1 quarterback off the board, but Malik Willis is the one with the most upside. And I was very much like, well, surely would you not want the one that you think is going to basically have the best career? That's kind of the whole point. And especially when it comes to the Steelers, I kind of think, what's the point of bringing in Mitchell Trubisky if you're not going to kind of use him as a bit of a bridge quarterback? I mean, that's kind of what he's there for. So because of that, I felt like Willis was the right play, because he could sit behind him. And even if Trubisky did get injured or missed games for whatever reason, you know, I know Mason Rudolph, we all kind of have a bit of a laugh, but it's like, even if it's for like a game or 2, and then you sort of think, well, then you could, you know, Willis can still develop. So that was the only reason that I had a bit of a feeling that Pickett might not have been the right choice. But having said that, everyone says that he's the one that's ready now. So I suppose if that's what you want, it just feels like if that was always the plan, then bringing in Trubisky,
Mitch,
it kind of feels a little bit.
It's odd, right? I did think the same thing, but I guess this is the issue with the draft, right? Same way Mike Tyson says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I mean, you kind of see the way the draft goes. Maybe they thought some things were going to change before their pick, and they weren't expecting to land Pickett, maybe. So in that point in time, like I've heard GMs and head coaches say it a lot, they had a plan, but the way the draft went completely changed that. So they then picked the next best guy. And maybe it was a case of them thinking, well, Mitch is a bridge, but we love Kenny and he's ready now. So if he's there, we're going to take him. It's one of them things. It's noughts and crosses with the draft, you know.
Exactly. Well, the big thing is, you say about why take Mitch. You took Mitch and you didn't know where anyone was going to land. Mitch was the insurance. Mitch was the insurance for, if we can't get our quarterback, at least we have someone. I
kind of get that. I suppose I feel now that you've got him, what's the point of bringing in the ready now guy when you can bring in the guy who can develop and everyone says it's going to be better? That's the one. That's where I kind of feel it's a little bit of a strange choice. It's not so much bringing in Trubisky. I suppose it's more the draft pick and the person that they've chosen. But I do get it. I mean, it's like maybe it's all changed because of, you know, the unfortunate events around Haskins as well. I mean, that so it kind of is almost like, right, we need someone who is more ready now because of that. And so maybe that is why they've gone down that route. But it just feels like the consensus seems to be that Willis is the one who's got the most potential to become a franchise quarterback. So that's all. But I mean, I get it. I get the pick. So
the Eagles.
Yeah, I was going to say, should we move on to it? It wasn't just draft pick that got traded last night, as the wide receiver carousel continues, which we thought was sort of over after free agency, and then with all the trades happening free agency, and then it comes out that Debo wants to get traded, and suddenly everyone on the night last night was like, wow, if Debo could get traded here within the draft, which would be sensational. But it wasn't that happened. Our first wide receiver that got traded away was Marquise Hollywood Brown from the Ravens, going to the Arizona Cardinals. The Ravens getting the Cardinals' first round pick at the back end of the draft and moved up there. And I believe they took, if I can just...
Drake. They took Hamilton, not Drake. Hamilton. Who, the Ravens?
No, they took Hamilton with their original pick.
Sorry. I thought you were
So
talking about
they took Hamilton with their original pick, and then they took
The Ravens went back, didn't they?
And
The
then
Ravens,
moved back
yeah.
with Baltimore.
That's it.
With
Yeah.
Buffalo, and then got Tyler
Yeah.
Linderbaum. Sorry, it's a very long way of going around it. But Marquise Hollywood Brown going to Cardinals, and then even bigger news was AJ Brown, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans, being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles for the Titans getting the first round pick in there for him, as well as there was other compensatory picks within all that as well. Who did they even pick in the end? Tennessee, Traylon Burks.
Yeah,
they went and picked Traylon Burks.
I mean,
hilariously, his comp as soon as he got traded was his comp's AJ Brown.
Yeah, this is the thing though. I mean, it's basically. I mean, before we come back to the Eagles, what the Tennessee Titans have done is almost similar to what the Vikings did with Stephon Diggs and bringing in Justin Jefferson. Fair enough, there wasn't a Justin Jefferson in this draft by any means, but I mean, AJ wanted, I think, $25 million a year or something like that. And I mean, the Titans instead, we're not going to pay you that. Instead, we'll trade you. They can pay that, and we'll go and draft another guy who we can pay $5 or $6 million, something like that. And it worked for the Vikings. I mean, look at Jefferson. Not to say that Diggs isn't great, because Diggs is flourishing and he just had his new deal with the Bills, but it's a money game. It's a business. You got to put that side of it first. What I will say is goodbye to AJ Brown. See you later. He won't be disturbing us in the AFC South anymore. We don't have to worry about him. We now have the best offense, the best defense, the best quarterback, the best running back, the best wide receiver. It's ours. AFC South is ours. I mean, if it isn't, we've got an issue. But who's to say Traylon Burks?
I think Traylon Burks and Robert Woods as a duo over.
Oh yeah, they're good. They are good.
Yeah.
So if Paris Campbell can stay healthy this season, along with the sleeper guy Ashton Julian, I love him, then we're cooking. But just coming back to the whole Eagles, it was unbelievable. I mean, we knew AJ Brown was basically on his way out, same way that we knew. But I say that I believe they both have the same agent, AJ Brown and Debo.
Yeah.
So the only difference for me was there was more talk about AJ Brown working towards an extension as opposed to being traded away like Debo. I mean, we've seen the footage of Debo in the club where there's a sign saying that Debo staying, and he immediately says, absolutely not. So we know he's out. Where he ends up, it will be a very good mystery based on what's happened in the draft last night. But as for the Eagles, I mean, my only issue with them is that I love what they've done. You've still got Fletcher Cox on the D-line, and now you have Jordan Davis as well, another Georgia product. They keep bringing them out. They are a great college team, but obviously you've got Devontae Smith. You mentioned Dallas Goedert. I think that their running back game could be slightly stronger because they do have issues there with injuries. Boston Scott, Miles Sanders are not the best. But then you go and bring in a guy like AJ Brown, who has his own issues with injury, but we've seen what he can do time and time again. He has come through for the Titans. My issue, and this is why I asked you this earlier, Freddie, is Jalen Hurts. I mean, again, I know you've mentioned you don't think he's had the best of talents, the best protection, etc., etc. And essentially, what the Eagles have done, they've played their hand really well in terms of they've got that first pick from us, the Colts and the Wentz, and they've basically flipped it and brought in AJ Brown, which is credit to them, but. My issue still lies with Jalen Hurts. I don't know if he's, the best guy to. We know he likes to run the ball, put it that way. He doesn't have the greatest of arms. At least we haven't seen it yet. Anyway, we've seen some flashes. But it'll be interesting because, they made some good moves. The squad is better off. Defensively, they look good.
Don't you think that Ryan Tannehill and Jalen Hurts are very comparable quarterbacks, though?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say so. I'd say Hurts is much more athletic. Obviously, we can see what he does with his legs on the ground. We know Tannehill can move, but nothing like. I don't think that's anything like Hurts. I don't think they can. Who has a better arm? Would I say? I don't know. I don't think Tannehill's amazing. Personally, he's not amazing. He can win you games. I mean, you've got Derrick Henry. You can do anything. It's a good question, but I don't even know who who would I put on top? Ooh, probably Hurts.
I take Hurts. I take Hurts all day long
because of what he can do. But I mean, for the Eagles, good move. It's shaking up the league. I'm happy as a Colts fan, AFC South for us. So, I mean, we just have to see how the rest of the draft falls round 2, 3, and onwards.
I think the Eagles are it's going to pay me to say it because I've got this reputation unfairly, I feel. But I feel that the Eagles are just continuing on doing everything right. It's just the continuation of the last couple of years. I quite like Hurts. I think he works for the system. He's not by no means is he the best quarterback in the NFL. But he works for the system. They've got a very strong O-line. The run game, they have had injuries, but they do. It doesn't matter who it is because of the O-line. It works, and they were one of the highest rushing teams last year. I don't really see.
They have the most rushing yards in the league.
Yeah,
as a team.
So they're a really good, solid run team, and that was what they wanted to be. Now you've got that extra weapon that is just, if he can stay fit, and he has had a few injury issues here and there, but if he can stay fit, he is going to be that thing that just completely takes them that extra step on. You've got AJ Brown, you've got Devontae Smith. Goddard, I think, is probably one of the most underrated tight ends in the league at the moment. So he's definitely one that you should, that's great for them. And now they've also taken Jordan Davis to basically be Fletcher Cox's replacement when he goes in next year or the year after. And they're looking very, very good. And okay, the Cowboys are probably still just about favourites for that division, or it's probably quite tight. But I only see one team going the right way in that division, and that's the Eagles, and I think that they will just continue to improve and get better.
You don't think the Giants going the right way as well?
Oh yeah, I think I meant in the division, not in the conference. But I think the Giants are definitely going the right way. But in the NFC East, which we've kind of always had a bit of a laugh about over the last few years, I think you do genuinely have a team there now who could challenge and get in the playoffs and really make a push for it if they, continue to bring in a few more good players, and they've got a few draft picks as well, still to come and next year. So I think like with the Hurts thing, because of the draft picks next year, that's almost the insurance for if it doesn't work with Hurts. Yeah. So I think, they're in a very good spot, and I can only see it getting a bit better. Yeah.
I think you said he's an extra weapon. I don't see that. I think he is I think he's the X factor. I think he is the type of player that can really change. This is like Hopkins going to the Cards for me, or Diggs going to Buffalo. Like this just pushes you up to a next echelon. I don't think Jalen Hurts has never had a weapon like this. Devontae Smith is good, but it's still got a lot to prove. All your wide receivers have been poor. No matter what you say, they have all been poor. The Jordan Davis pick is fantastic as the heir apparent to Fletcher Cox, who wasn't really going to be coming back this year and then decided to come back. I completely agree with you. I really like the route that the Eagles are going with this. They're always a wheeler. Harry Roseman's a wheeler dealer. He's like the Del Boy of NFL, but he loves to trade. But we'll give a little bit of love to Hollywood Brown going to the Cards. I mean, it's a Christian Kirk replacement, isn't it? Lamar Jackson seems pretty upset on Twitter though.
Yeah.
Do you think that rattles some cages in the organization?
I think it's a good. I get why the Cards have done it. It makes sense, doesn't it, for them to replace Christian Kirk? So I mean, that's a logical one. I think Brown's always been a bit of a. I think everyone's kind of given him a bit of a hard time because he's in Baltimore. They're not a particularly pass-heavy offense. They never have been. So I think he's always had a bit of a hard rap. So, I mean, there's Bateman, isn't there? He was out injured, and obviously he came on a little bit at the end. So I think he's going to be potentially their main guy. You might find they go for a receiver today or tomorrow.
Possibly.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I think the whole trade kind of makes sense for everyone in that one, which is a good one.
What time does it start tonight?
Midnight. Is
it midnight tonight?
Right. Okay.
Me and George were debating this before we came on. I said 10, and I went, it might be 11. I went, it's always later than you think because you're really tired and then you go, oh, I'll catch some of the second day, and then it's on really late. You're like, oh, do I have to? And it's really hard to. Quickly before we wrap some things up, what pick last night? This doesn't have to be like you hated it or you loved it. The one where you went like, oh wow, oh okay, like that's big. Like that's either like a bit ballsy, a bit wow, that's really great. Wow, I did not see that come in. What was the pick or within the draft last night that you really like sort of knocked the wind out of you and you were a bit like, wow, okay, it like shocked you a bit?
It's interesting because there was I don't know if there's a few honourable mentions that kind of caught me by surprise. One being Drake London. He's my favourite receiver in the entire draft. I've said it so many times. I love the guy. He sort of reminds me of a level up from Michael Crabtree. And he's obviously gone to the Falcons. He's now paired with Kyle Pitts, and it looks like they're going for the air raid, bigger receiver type play. The Chris Olave move was very interesting. But for me, I think it was the Lions trading up to the 12th pick in Jameson Williams, and I really like him. I love everything I saw at him with Alabama. Obviously, they've gone for Hutch in the second round pick, and towards the end, and I said this before on so many different shows, including this one, but at the end of last season, obviously, we saw how the Lions sort of, they were building, and they looked quite decent with guys like Amon St. and now they've signed DJ Chark as well from the Jags, who I think is quite underrated. I forget the name of the other guy. One of the smaller receivers they have, his name escapes me. But I liked what I saw. I liked their running back unit too, a very underrated team, even some of the defensive guys. So seeing them take Jameson Williams, I think it basically just shores up their wide receiver room. He's kind of a do-it-all guy. We've seen what he's done at Alabama, and we know Alabama are, they produce great athletes. And for me, it just fits in with everything that they're trying to do over there. I listened to a pod the other day, and it's spoken about, if you come to the Lions, you will get a chance to show us what you can do, and we know what Jameson Williams can do. And I just love everything that they're bringing over there, the aggressiveness, and I know they didn't have a great season. And to be fair to them, a lot of their games were lost by, I think, 3 points, field goals, and silly mistakes. They had a lot of close games. So Jameson Williams, for me, Alabama, they traded up with Minnesota to land at the 12th pick and drafted Williams as wide receiver. So that took me by surprise, but I love it. All for it.
Yeah, I think probably the strangest pick, and it's probably an apt name for it. It was Cole Strange. That was kind of very, very left field. I don't think anyone was expecting that.
That was the Patriots. Yeah. Have you seen the video of
Sean
McVay and who's the GM?
I forget his name.
Snead.
Snead. Have you seen it, Adam?
Snead.
No.
Yeah.
No. They're having a press conference, and the TV's on, and McVay just goes, "Pats just took Cole Strange. Oh my god!" And they everyone's laughing, and they're like laughing. They went, "We thought he was going to be there at
the fourth round."
That's our pick gone. And they were both really, and they what school is it he's from again? It's a great.
It's Chattanooga.
Tennessee, Chattanooga. But from Tennessee, Chattanooga, he's gone Cole Strange. But they were really like, oh, we did not see that coming. We wanted.
You say that though, but when Pats and Bill, they do this, don't they? And they tend to hit. So I don't know what they've seen or what it is, or what's maybe he just fits the scheme really well. Interesting name, even more interesting name of his school. And that pick has gone from San Francisco to Miami to Kansas City to New York to New England. So. It's one to look out for, that one. It's definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, that was the oddest one. I have to say, the one pick that I would say that kind of got the most excitement, like George said, was Jameson Williams, just because it was such a massive move up. We all thought quarterback. I mean, no one, who moves up that far and doesn't take a quarterback, and then they go and do that. So, yeah, that was probably the most exciting one. And then obviously, was quite excited for the Giants too. I mean, that was quite big for Andrew and all that sort of thing. But and then just had quite a laugh when Kenny Pickett came out. So that was always
you poke fun. But the next 5 years, He's going to be amazing. Mine honestly was, and was I just under a rock? Because everyone seemed to like not be surprised or and knew about it. Derek Stingley going to the Texans. I didn't read that anywhere. Like I didn't hear read that anywhere. And suddenly he got picked and everyone was like, oh yeah, well, you know, the Stingley was rumored to be going to, and I was like, was he? I don't remember. I thought he was going like 15th or 12th. Like everyone said he was going to go to the Vikings. And then
do you know what? I think the thing is, oh sorry, go on, Adam.
In the last couple of days, I think he had been rumoured to move up a bit more. Everyone thought Stingley was the number one corner like a couple of years ago. They were all saying how amazing he was. So I think everyone kind of felt like he was going to move up. He was going to do something, but it had been very, very quiet. And I think everyone was a bit concerned about the injury. So once that had all come through, I think that was when it really made a difference. And that is probably why you saw the Vikings trade down so far.
I think the other thing is, just to quickly mention as well, the Texans needed everything. So had it been someone else, we probably would have said the same thing. You know, we would have said, oh, I didn't see that coming. Purely, I mean, to be fair, I thought they were, and I heard a lot about them taking a running back. I mean, not necessarily ideal because they weren't any running backs, and we knew that was going to be the case. But I think we would have said the same kind of thing, regardless of who they picked, because they needed pretty much everything. But again, you've got the injury history. He's a great athlete, and of course, Sauce followed immediately after.
I have to say that, like, my outside of like the Pittsburgh pick of being excitement, the Jets, Giants, then Jets picks for me, I was really hot. Like I said for Andrew, I was really hyped for him. Yeah. So I was like Andrew said that I hope we get Kayvon Thibodeau a year and a half ago to me. Like before Kayvon name was like quite a bit. Like obviously it was a big thing in college football. But in college, when it was the start of the college season last year, and probably a bit further back than that, it might have even been the draft last year because Andrew's college knowledge is just so elite. He was like, Kayvon Thibodeau, if we can get Kayvon Thibodeau in that draft for the Giants, I'm going to be so pleased. He could be the number one pick. It's just whether he gets past the number one pick. And obviously he was like meant to be number one pick for like January, February. Yeah, and then it was Evan Neal, and then it was like, and then it just came down and down and down. And Andrew has said the whole time, like Kayvon Thibodeau, he's elite and he's going to be amazing. And he said the same thing about Evan Neal. And I'm just really pleased for Andy because they're two players that he's really liked for a long time. I think it's been difficult in New York with their drafts. I don't think there's been that excitement of an X factor coming in. A lot of the time for them. I know they've been trading out. Obviously, they traded out with Chicago last year, so they didn't get that high pick because Chicago went and got Justin Fields. And then this year was their draft to like, we're going to get some X factors here. We're going to get some guys that are going to be the mainstays of the future. And that's what I quite like about what both the Jets and the Giants have done is the key areas in football: quarterback, left tackle, bookend tackles, corners, and then you got your skill guys. And both New York teams addressed all of it. Like, you know, they took the Sauce Gardner, the corner of the future. They took the edge rusher, the Jets, you know, the edge threat for the future. They took the X factor wide receiver. And then Giants, they took the X factor edge rusher and, you know, the bookend tackle, whether he play. I think he'll play right tackle with Andrew Thomas playing on the left. But you have your bookend tackles there now for the next 5+ years. You know, that's you need that sort of thing within an organization. And again, I think we did touch on it earlier. It's the Joe Schoen and the Brian Delphin of Giants where you just go, this is different now. Something's happening here. And I can't remember who we said. Who did we say that about? About a year and a bit ago. There was one team.
The Eagles, probably.
Was it the Eagles? There was one team that was doing a lot of stuff, and we were like, there's something going on here with this team. I don't know who it was now. And they probably ended up being crap. We probably didn't have a clue what we were talking about. And I don't know. I can't remember now for the life of me. Anyway, we're going to sort of start wrapping up, I suppose, here. But we did have our competition, which was to comment on our video on YouTube, subscribe to us. I've got everyone wrote down who entered. It was 33 people entered in the end. We said it's a jersey of choice with name and number on the back. I say jersey of the choice. You know, we did say in the video, don't be ridiculous, like the 1980s ones or the colour. They are a lot more expensive. It will be your regular home team jersey with whatever name and number you like on the back. Hope if you can try and pick like Cox, like not not Hutchinson. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Go for Dax Hill, not Walker.
The longest name.
Yeah. And with and preferably one number, well, if you get a Kenny
single.
Pickett, just get a single digit. Now they can do that. We don't have to pay for 2 numbers and 10 letters. Thank God they don't have the school names on there, else we'd be paying for Tennessee Chinanooga to be on the back as well. Wouldn't it? But Adam picked the number last time. Obviously, I've got the names off YouTube, so there are some it's not all John Smith. There's some random names here. But between 1 and 32, George, pick a number, and this will be the winner for the competition. And we'll get in contact with you over Twitter, and we'll arrange for your jersey. So pick a number between 1 and 32, George.
12.
So that is Blue 80 Fantasy Football. Whoever Blue 80 Fantasy Football is, whether they be in the UK or the US, we will get a jersey over to you. I'll message you on YouTube. Blue 80 Fantasy Football. I'm sure whatever your name is. Congratulations, and thank you for everyone who did enter and for sharing it as well. Thank you to loads of people who shared it. Actually, some Jeff Reinbold shared it. Obviously, all the guys here, a lot of our friends within the UK NFL podcast scene, a lot of our friends over in the American podcast scene, all shared it. And thank you for your support with that. It's been obviously. I feel like this will probably spill into the next video talking about the draft because we've got the rest of the weekend to compete. We've got second round, third, all the way to the 7th. It does get a lot faster pace for people who do not watch the draft. Usually, maybe this is the first year you're watching the draft. It isn't all for 5 hours long. It gets a lot faster paced. It starts a lot earlier every day as well. But it'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure you'll all enjoy it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for chatting with us last night over the draft. We had a great time, and we'll see you all very soon. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll be back next week.